It is the 1st of March 2023 and it's still freezing here in Britain, still waiting for spring to properly come. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses and peace and security, you see, that's the final signal that Jehovah's Witnesses believe will happen because of what the Apostle Paul said and what Jesus said about his, some people call it the second coming. He said that it would be a time of great crisis, the world would be threatened, there would be a great tribulation and a great persecution, and these things would lead up to an announcement where there is a final, it's like a final signal, and this is what it says. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 1 to 5. He says, "Now, as for seasons and times, brothers, you need nothing to be written to you. For you know very well that God's day, or Jehovah's day, is coming like a thief in the night." Now, he mentions that in Matthew 24 and Luke 21. A thief in the night means it catches you unawares. So the end will be, Christians will be waiting for, and then it'll come like a surprise. It'll come like the pangs of a birth on a pregnant woman. That was another illustration Jesus used. And then it says this, it says verse 3, "Whenever it is that they are saying peace and security, then sudden destruction will be instantly upon them." So it says in verse 6, "So then let us not sleep on as the rest do, but stay awake and keep our senses." He's staying, not to sleep, be in darkness like the people of society. They have no conception because their minds are on food prices and energy prices. So in Luke 21, he goes into more details how this could develop, because we've got the war in Ukraine. Now, it's moving towards a situation where you could have a nuclear exchange, which would bring, most experts are saying that this mustn't happen because everything will be destroyed and ruined. So is the peace and security the message when somehow this Ukrainian war that's involving a good number of nations of the world, especially NATO, but on the other side, the Russian side, you've got China and a whole load of countries all against each other. So will the peace initiative for Ukraine between all these nations, will this be the final signal? We don't know. Of course, Jehovah's Witnesses have been waiting for this to happen. But then Jesus said, "He who is endured to the end will be saved." So it's in endurance. So in Luke 21, something happened in the first century. This was the final signal. So we're waiting for this worldwide announcement of peace and security, a really prominent one, more than ever before. But something happened in the first century with the Jewish system. Now that warning was given in Thessalonians about peace and security in 51 CE. That was some 15 years before, 16 or 15 years before General Titus did this event. Sorry, General Paulus. Now this was the final signal given in Luke 21. First he says this, he says, this is a whole load of events that we're seeing happening today were mentioned to happen in the last days and happened in Jerusalem and Israel as well. It says, "Moreover, you will be handed over even by parents and brothers and sisters and relatives and friends, and they will put you to death." Who are they handing them over to? The governmental authorities. It says, "And you will be hated by the people of all the nations because of my name." So there's this betrayal in the family. That's another big event that's starting to show. And then he says this, "By your endurance you'll preserve your lives." Verse 20, Luke 21:20. "However, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by encamped armies, then know that the desolating of her has drawn near." Now that happened. It got surrounded by armies, and they even got to breaking into the temple wall, and then suddenly the armies fled. This was Jesus' advice to Christians. Now this was their final signal, and he told them what they needed to do. He says, it said, verse 21, then let those in Judea begin fleeing to the mountains. Let those in the midst of her leave, and let those in the countryside not enter her. Her is the city of Jerusalem and Judea. So Christians were told what to do. Get out. And they had to stay out for nearly 4 years before destruction took place, which meant their lives were saved. So Jesus gave specific instructions. Now we're told that when this peace and security signal comes, we must do the same. Stay loyal and not give in to family members who are trying to say, oh no, you must support the government. You must support the government. It's marvellous. We've got peace. It's not going to be the case. This is when the end completely comes. And this is why Jehovah's Witnesses have a thing called the go bag. And that is an emergency ration bag that you could run and flee, because we know at a given moment's notice we may have to flee into the countryside, into the forests, and hide away from the authorities who will be trying to hunt us down with their military activities and put us to death. So that's where we're at. So we live in an exciting but a bit scary time. Thank you for your attention, and see you again.